TFA Fam, what is going on? It is the Week 14 Fantasy Running Back Rankings. If you're listening to us, either A, you love us, or hopefully, more importantly, it's important that you love us, but two, you're in your fantasy playoffs. You did not secure that bye, but we're going to help you get to that next round with our running back ranking show. We're going to just dive right into it, but before we do, make sure you slam that subscribe button. We are going to be giving away a signed and autographed and authentic Allen Robinson jersey. We're going to be giving that away. What do we say, Kev? December 27th during the live show?
Exactly, December 27th.
So there you have it. Only giving it away to the people who are subscribed to our YouTube channel. Make sure whenever you jump over, you drop a comment in one of the videos that just says like, A-Rob, jersey, giveaway, whatever, something so we can track it. We're going to put it into a randomizer, and then that's how we're going to how we're going to pick the winner. So with that out of the way, man, let's just go ahead and jump into the running back rankings for Week 14. If you do not watch or listen to the quarterback rankings show, the way we're going to do this, I'm going to look at the Fantasy Pros consensus rankings. Kev has his own here loaded up on the screen with that sweet, just dolled up TFA logo. Not new, just a little remix on the logo. Kev, who's somebody out of your RB1 rankings that you wanna wax poetic about?
It'd be really easy for me to talk about somebody like Aaron Jones, who gets a fantastic matchup against the Lions this week, or even Austin Eckler. Nick Chubb gets a great matchup, but I'm going to talk about Ezekiel Elliott. That's somebody that probably people are a little bit down on because of the fantasy performance we've been getting from him lately. However, I think there's some things to really that's looking up for him as well. He's still playing 70% of the snaps, despite the fact that Tony Pollard is starting to mix in more into this backfield. 70% of the opportunities. He's still 5th in carries, 5th in targets, 10th in rushing yards, 7th in receptions, 12th in fantasy points per game, and he's 1st in routes run among all running backs, which is pretty impressive. The problem is he's 19th in yards created and 47th in yards created per touch. He just hasn't been very efficient with the touches he's been given. A lot of that, some of those have been through those games where we've seen guys like Ben DiNucci and Gilbert, and even Andy Dalton to a certain extent. Once they've really lost Dak Prescott, it's kind of taken away some of the firepower of this offense. However, they do get a Bengals defense, and that is a defense that can cure whatever woes you may be having, because Cincinnati allows the 3rd most rushing yards of the season. They are also 30th in adjusted line yards, 5th in power success, but they're also 29th in open, 31st and second level, and 27th in stuff rank. So this is a really great matchup for Ezekiel Elliott. And tonight, coming off a matchup, a game against the Baltimore Ravens where he rushed 18 times for 77 yards. He also received 4 receptions on 6 targets for 18 yards. So, that is something that's also encouraging. So for this offense this week, getting in Cincinnati, I think this is a great bounce back spot for Zeke. Likely finds the end zone. So I think you can fire up Ezekiel Elliott. If you're in the playoffs and you own him, I think he's somebody you could definitely play.
So moving things along, the RB1 that I want to talk about, who is on Fantasy Pros consensus running back 1 rankings, but not on yours. I wouldn't expect anything less coming from you, the Jonathan Taylor hater, and that is Jonathan Taylor. He's sitting at RB10 as of this morning. You don't even have him on your RB1 list. Jonathan Taylor's season is upon us. He's finally getting the carries and the snaps he should have been getting the entire year. Week 13, 54% of the running back carries, 37% of the running back targets, and 48% of the overall snaps. Week 11, that was 69% of the carries, 44% of the running back targets, and 56% of the snaps. Both of those weeks finished as an RB1. Now he's getting the Raiders, who are giving up the 4th most half PPR points per game to running backs, and they have the 3rd worst rush DVOA in the league. They've been giving it up to running backs on the ground and through the air. So I feel like even with Jonathan Taylor's smaller, target share, he should be able to make the most of them and, be able to pop off a big gain and still be able to give us some production in the passing game. So Jonathan Taylor, I'm going to put some respect on that man's name because you certainly aren't going to, sir.
Well, sir, I will say this, that yes, I do have Jonathan Taylor a little bit lower than consensus, but that is because that, like you mentioned, he only played, 48% of the snaps, I believe. That is still not an area where I feel comfortable putting somebody like that and putting them as a starter. Or putting them as a locked-in RB1, if that's all the production that I'm seeing from him. So I am a little bit lower on Jonathan Taylor, but I still think that he definitely has RB1 upside in this matchup against the Oakland Raiders, fucking Las Vegas Raiders. But I'm going to talk really quickly about a couple of guys. One is more of a conversation. Listen, I do not feel great about Miles Sanders. I mean, and I don't know how could you. He only has 2 weeks of RB1 production on this entire season. He hasn't scored more than 9 fantasy points since week 10 against the Giants. This week, they play a Saints defense that has only allowed 62 rushing yards per game. In all the season, the Saints have allowed the 4th fewest fantasy points to the position. So this is a really bad matchup for a running back that has really struggled. But to me, it's not really Miles Sanders that struggled. It's been the offense that struggled, and the fact that Doug Peterson is a terrible head coach and doesn't want to give him the ball. But can you play him? I think it really depends on who else you have. If you have somebody else that could take his spot, like a Jonathan Taylor, that you could plug in, I think you could do it. If you have somebody like a J.K. Dobbins or even possibly a Melvin Gordon, I think you could consider it. The thing with Miles Sanders that we know is these two things. With having Jalen Hurts now, who is a much more athletic quarterback than what Carson Wentz is and his ability to escape the pocket, I think that could create some more running lanes for Miles Sanders. And if they can get Miles Sanders more involved as passing game, but you still look at him, he's still 9th in routes run, he's 17th in targets and receptions, but he only has 2 goal line carries on the season, which is obviously frustrating. But I think with Jalen Hurts, I think if this offense can get going, I think this could help Miles Sanders. And it is tough to try to sit somebody with his sort of upside, because he does have 25 to 30 point upside, or maybe not 30 points, probably a little high, but let's say 18 to 25 fantasy point upside in him. But he also has a 3, as a floor. So he is really hard to trust. But like I said, if you own one of these guys like Jonathan Taylor or possibly even a J.K. Dobbins, guys like this, I think they are much higher potential. And depending on how your roster looks, if you need somebody that has a much higher ceiling, I think that's where you go with a guy like Jonathan Taylor or J.K. Dobbins, or even, like I said, Melvin Gordon, who gets a good matchup against the Panthers this week. So I could probably be even a little bit lower on Miles Sanders, but I'm not going to completely call him dead just yet. Moving on to the other running back is Cam Akers. I'm going to talk about the other rookie running back we have here. We're finally, Sean McVay decided to turn over the reins to him. He handled 66% of the snaps last week against the Cardinals. He now has double-digit fantasy points again over the last 2 weeks. This week he gets our Patriots defense, ranks 25th in adjusted line yards, 30th in power, 24th in second level, 28th in open field yards. And they're also 28th in rush DVOA. So this is a really good matchup for Cam Akers. And if they continue on the same trajectory where they're giving him the most of the carries and utilizing him in the passing game, I think this is a good matchup for him on Thursday night against the Patriots. I think he should be viewed as a solid RB2 this week. So those are the 2 running backs that I wanted to talk about. I'm not over the moon on Miles Sanders, but I did want to discuss him because I know he's something a lot of people are going to wonder what the heck to do with him. I think you can sit him. I would drop in the comment section below on who you want a guy you want to play, or maybe if you're a Miles Sanders owner and what your options are, and we can we can talk about who you might sit him for if that's an option, because obviously with this being the fantasy playoffs, you don't have another week. And when it comes to the fantasy playoffs, you should be playing nothing but fucking ceiling, because if you lose, you're out.
Yeah, this is not the time to play scared. Someone that you mentioned that you possibly could start over him that I'm going to talk about here in the RB2s, and that is Melvin Gordon. Last week, he was super impressive against Kansas City. Yes, they do not have a good rushing defense, but he still put up 131 yards on just 15 carries, and that's noteworthy nonetheless, especially when you compare it to Phillip Lindsay, who had a absolutely putrid 26 yards on 14 carries. Now, this week they get Carolina, and they are giving up the 8th most fantasy points per game to running backs. Real quick before we move on to the RB3s and wrap this up, something that did just really catch my eye. Do you want to take a guess of where Myles Gaskin ranks in Fantasy Pros consensus rankings right now?
Well, considering how much he touches the ball and the fact that they're playing the Chiefs, who are terrible against the run, I would think that he's at least a high-end RB2, possibly a low-end RB1.
He's at RB9.
That's ridiculous. I'm sorry, that's ridiculous. Listen,
okay.
Because, and this is why I think that's ridiculous, because I get what just happened with the Chiefs this past week, and what Melvin Gordon was able to do. But at the same time, the Broncos defense is better. It was a close game, division rival. I do not project that this game against the Dolphins is going to go the same way. I think the Chiefs could boat race the Dolphins, to be honest with you. And if that happens, Myles Gaskin comes nowhere close to that. Like that's a ranking for somebody that you think that's going to get 20 to 25 touches, and I just don't see that being possible against this offense, especially with Tua at quarterback. Like they're going to have to be able to keep up. We know this offense can drop 30 to 35 on you. If the Dolphins can't keep up with that, there's no way Myles Gaskin. That is the riskiest. I have Myles Gaskin higher because I do think there's a potential he gets 15 to 18 touches in this game and is involved in the passing game as well, and could end up, getting into the end zone. But that is ultra aggressive to have him as an RB1.
Yeah, I think your ranking is much more in line of where he should be than when I saw RB9. I was just like, wait, there's no fucking way. He's been fine, but like he hasn't. I don't think that just this matchup alone should vault him into the RB1 conversation. But anyway, I digress. Moving on to the RB3 rankings. Pick a couple players here and just tell the folks how you feel about this group.
All I'm going to say really quickly about this is Gio Bernard. I really like him. I could have had him a little bit higher. This is a good matchup for him this week. He's averaging 11 carries per game, 4 targets, as well as 4 targets and taking over for Joe Mixon. But he has limited to 0 touchdowns over the last 4 weeks. However, if you look at their schedule, they face a really brutal run defense schedule in terms of matchup. The Steelers, the Washington football team, the Giants, and the Dolphins. Like, it's just not been very good in terms of matchups for him. However, he is tipped in receptions, 11th in routes run. They're facing a Dallas defense who has just been awful against the run. They were just shredded tonight by the Ravens, by Gus Edwards, who had over 100 yards, as well as J.K. Dobbins had a great game and found the end zone. But the Cowboys have allowed the 2nd most rushing yards and 4th most touchdowns on the ground, and they rank dead last in adjusted line yards and 31st in rush DVOA. So this is a great matchup for Gio. So if you're a Gio owner and you just have him in roster him because he's had these terrible matchups, you haven't wanted to play him, this is the week that you're going to want to do that. And again, like Gio's also another player that I could actually probably consider playing over Miles Sanders. Like the more and more I think I've kind of thought processed my way through this, of talking about this and looking at this a little bit more, I would probably actually look at Miles Sanders as more of an RB3 because like there's a lot of running backs in really good spots this week that I think just have better matchups and I think you can trust a little bit more than Miles Sanders. So, but I do like Gio Bernard. Some of these other guys just really quickly. I could have probably put Peyton Barber possibly on this list because Antonio Gibson sounds like he's going to be out this week with that toe injury, which sucks because, he's looked really good. He was really starting to come on, and for him to get hurt like that on the closing weeks of the season, really a shame. I have to see how severe it is and how long he's looking to miss, but it's just a shame. I don't love Peyton Barber. People should not be running out and try to add Peyton Barber all over the place. I think that's a little bit ridiculous. He did find the end zone against the Steelers, but I think J.D. McKissick who is also just a great PPR option. So people in PPR formats think you can look there. But Ty Johnson, they are playing Seattle this week. Seattle has actually been pretty decent against the run, so it's not really a great matchup for him. But looks like he's, as long as Frank Gore is indeed out this week with that concussion, that he's likely going to be the guy who leads the backfield in touches. So Ty Johnson, still a really young running back, 23 years old, but I just don't trust him. I think if you're in a pinch, you could possibly play him. And then Devontae Booker was terrible last week. I guess they were looking at Spencer Ware, but there was a tough matchup. The Jets are really good against the run. This week they play the Colts, but the Colts have been really good against the run as well. So he's somebody that I have a lot of trouble trusting as well. I think that he has a floor of 4 or 5, but also could have a ceiling of 15 to 20, just depending on how things work out. They didn't really utilize him as much as the passing game either, which was weird because prior to that, when it was Josh Jacobs, he was really kind of the third down back, and then all of a sudden they kind of went away from that. I don't get it. I don't understand what the fucking Raiders do with their running backs. It makes no sense to me. But regardless of that, I think that's where I come in on these guys. And also, Todd Gurley, don't play Todd Gurley unless you're absolutely desperate.
Yeah, what a fall he has taken, especially from the first half of the season where he was at least putting up touchdown production that was floating his fantasy production, and now I would not be starting him like you said unless you were just absolutely desperate. The last guy I want to touch on before we wrap up and get out of here and that is Jamal Williams. You touched on Aaron Jones already sitting up. I think you had him at RB5. I think he's in that same range on Fantasy Pros consensus as well. Jamal Williams is someone who I think you could plug in as a flex option because of how great this matchup is for Green Bay. Detroit is giving up the most fantasy points per game to running backs. They're giving up the fourth most rushing yards, the most rushing touchdowns, the third most receiving yards to running backs, and the most receiving touchdowns to running backs as well. Aaron Jones is absolutely going to get his. This isn't a, Jamal Williams takes over in this game kind of take. I just think both of them could feast. And I think Jamal Williams can easily have himself an RB2 week with how dreadful this defense is. And the Packers currently have the highest implied total on the week, along with the second widest spread. So this is a game that I like, that I think both running backs could absolutely eat in. So that's going to wrap things up for the running back rankings for Week 14. Like we said at the top, make sure you subscribe, along with dropping the comments on who to start with Miles Sanders. Make sure you also put something in there, just says like giveaway A-Rob, something like that, so we can track this, find who you are. Like I said, we're going to be doing the giveaway on December 27th during the live show, so you're not going to want to miss out on that. And we're going to be giving away at least some T-shirts and possibly something else. So we're just giving shit away. We are a podcast and a YouTube channel and a fantasy content producing just empire for the people. We're here for you guys. Drop a comment, slam that subscribe button, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Best of luck in Week 14.